So there's a number of things here, obviously, that come up here. The first one, and I guess at this point, then we move away from evidence potentially so far and into speculations or conclusions that you might have based on this information. And
You're about to ask me a question that I love to answer. Go ahead.
well, we'll see if it's the one. And basically, it is what are they looking for here? Obviously, you mentioned the integration program, that they want to integrate with us for whatever reason, and there's two strands to this, and one is that why do they want to integrate with us? What's the point of that? And
Yes.
what is the DNA factor in this as well? Because it seems then that an important thing here is they want to mingle for whatever reason their DNA with us, and it doesn't matter how, if I can call it that, how diluted it is, so to speak, meaning that it's only certain properties from them that they want to carry on over into these hybrids.
Well, you asked, those are two different questions.
Yes.
The first one is the question that I expect you to ask. Why? Why do this in the first place?
Yeah.
And it's the question I love to answer. That is the question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, we don't know why. We do not know why. Now I'm going to get into some of the arguments in favor of this phenomenon. If this were psychological, and Henrik, in this situation, this phenomenon is psychological or it's happening. There's nothing in the middle.
Right.
People are inventing this for whatever reason. I don't care whether they're crazy, it's pathology, it's psychiatric, or whether it's psychological, or whether they picked it up in popular culture, or whatever it is, it's still coming out of their minds. It's not actually happening, or it's happening. So when you take a look at if this is psychological, we'd know why. They're inventing everything else. They'd invent why. You know, we'd have a whole series of different whys. Mm. We don't have whys. We don't know. Abductees don't know why. Yeah. They don't know what the hell's going on. All they know is what's happening to them. You know, they don't know the big picture, generally speaking. We don't know why. Here's something else. Telepathy. There's no particular reason to say that all communication is telepathic. If this were psychological, the vast majority of people, one would assume, would say, no, what do you mean? They're talking to me, their lips are moving, and I can hear it through my ears. And they speak with strange accents. We don't get that. All communication is telepathic, even though there's no reason to say that. And if it were psychological, that wouldn't happen. The second, here's something else that I discovered early on, that Bud Hopkins discovered, but here's the way you look at it. People tell me, they're taking me out of I'm getting off the couch now and I'm moving towards the window. There's a light coming into the window. No, they're taking me I'm going to the window. And I say, whoa, wait a minute now. Hang on a second. When you're at the window, do you open the window? And they'll say, no, I don't open the window, no. And I'll say, well, do these beings open the window? I say, no, they don't open the window. I say, well, does the window open by itself in some way so you can go out the window? They say, no, I think I'm going right through the closed window. Does anybody else ever say that? And the answer is, yeah, everybody says that. Psychologically, nobody should say that, because if they're telling me a story that they're making up for, even though if they don't know it, opening the window is perfectly logical and not a stumbling block to belief.
Right.
In other words, why not open the window? Everything is fine then.
Right.
But they say, no, I'm not. I don't know what's happening. I'm going right through the window. And they all say that. It goes, I mean, in other words, the psychological aspects that we should be seeing if people were making this up. No patterns, you know, obviously people in different cultures will be saying different things. People with different educational levels might be saying different things. People who let's just say if your parents kept you in a closet for the first 9 years of your life, you might be saying different things, you know. Yeah. But everybody says the same thing. I've worked with people who are themselves psychiatrists and psychologists and medical doctors and attorneys and college professors and high school teachers and people who could never hold a job in their lives and couldn't get it together and everybody in between. And they all say exactly the same things. It is breathtakingly precise. It's unbelievable. It's if it wasn't any of those things, if it was all over the place, I would have thought there would be no abduction phenomenon. It's obviously psychological, but it does not fit any psychological category. Not only that, but people are physically missing from their normal environments when they are abducted.
Right, right.
Search parties have been called out. Police have been called. Children are hunted for their parents. The parents have hunted for their kids, look for their kids. People are abducted in groups and can confirm each other's abduction. People see other people being abducted and are not abducted. Now, that's rare, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And in other words, there's all these other, and as soon as you start talking about people being abducted in groups, all psychological theories just fall to the wayside. There's a brick wall there. The psychologists scratch their heads and pretend it doesn't exist. Pretend that evidence doesn't exist and just go on with their own theories about what's going on and ignore it.
Yeah.
But the fact is that all these things put together, they lead me into this conclusion of hybrid integration, and it's an area that I never, ever in my life would have ever thought I would be at. When I started doing this in 1986, I never would have imagined the conclusions that I would be drawing from this. It is not as if I've led people into thinking this and that. It's they have led me kicking and screaming. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
so that's what I found anyway.
What's the plan if indeed it is the case that
right, the DNA situation?
Well, that too. Yeah. Okay. Let's go there. Yeah.
Well, the question is, how many people are abductees and how many people are non-abductees? And how is this transmitted through generations? Hopkins found early on that it's an intergenerational phenomenon. If a person is abducted, their mother or their father was an abductee. Basically, you're not going to be an abductee when you get to be 40 years old. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen when you're 8 months old, but it's not going to happen when you're 80. You know?
Yeah.
So, because your mother or your father was an abductee. Now, here's the problem. And here comes a dispute between Bud and I. We debate this. I think that when a person who's an abductee marries a non-abductee, I think that all the kids will be abductees. Bud thinks that that's not necessarily the case, that not all the kids will be abductees, just some of them. That's our debate.
Yeah.
But you can see it no matter what, it spreads through the society, through the generations, and it also begins to include non-abductees in the spreading of them.
So that means that it's like a cell growth here, so to speak. It's spreading. The more hybrids we have, and the more who are abducted, rather, the more people will get abducted, and the more will turn into hybrids. That's what you're saying.
Right. That's right. What happens is, as long as an abductee marries a non-abductee, you get a cone-like spreading out in the society.
Yeah.
If an abductee marries another abductee, that is going to be lessened. That's going to be more linear. But because their children then will marry non-abductees, and more abductees will be so the population increases, the abduction phenomenon increases, but the abduction phenomenon actually increases at a greater rate, I think.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing in the society. So the question is, well, how long will it be before everybody in the whole world's an abductee?
Yeah, that's right.
I actually had a mathematician work this out for me. Well, of course, it depends on how many abductees, how many people you start with. And we know that if you start with, let's just say, 1 million people or whatever it is, now it's a global phenomenon. It's not an American phenomenon. It's a Swedish phenomenon. It's an Italian phenomenon. It's French. It's Japanese. It's Indian. It's Egyptian. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
But the question then is, if you start with 1 million people or 100,000, because of the children business, it increases almost exponentially. And so you can estimate, let's just say 7 to 10 generations, and everybody would be an abductee. It's like doubling, the squares on a checkerboard. You do a double, and by the time you get to the square number 64, the number is astronomical.
Yeah.
It's not quite like that, but the number does increase exponentially.